Entrepreneurs aren't born, they're brewed. You are now listening to the Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney. Let's grow.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Podcast. I am your host, Adam McChesney, and I want to thank you for being here today. Thank you to Half Coast Studios for all that you do in getting the podcast produced and distributed, along with sponsoring the show. If you are looking to start your current podcast or take your current one to the next level, then you need to come check out what they have going on. Contact them today for a free consultation. And if you're listening, please be sure to subscribe to the show and leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. We would love for you to share this on social media by tagging me and our guests. In this way, we can get this incredible content out to more people. Today, we have another great episode lined up for you. I first met this guest last month as we shared the stage at BLN Live in Washington, D.C. I didn't know much about her or her story before she spoke, and I have to say it was hands down one of the best talks of the day. I learned a lot of information just about myself and different things I've gone through in life based on her story and what she was able to share with us. So you're going to want to give this entire episode a listen because I know how good it's going to be. My guest today is Lizzie Ens. She is the owner at UnDiet Yourself and author of Escaping My Reflection. Lizzie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, that was amazing.
I pride myself in doing a little bit of a wordsmith when it comes to the introduction, as well as obviously some research as well. So,
no, thanks for that shout out about the event. That event was so amazing. And
it was,
yeah.
and I was just blessed, to be on the stage and obviously sharing the stage with all the speakers. But I was telling JR, I'm like, I've been to a lot of events and like literally top to bottom, that lineup was insane. Like normally you're like,
Wild.
Okay, I can go and like take a break, or like I was glued to my seat the entire time because I'm like, every person is bringing something. And I liked how it was, 15-minute increments. I think sometimes when everybody's got like 30 to 45 minutes, sometimes it can drag out and get long, but it was good. But I'm excited. I appreciate you joining me here today.
I'm excited too. It's going to be fun.
So we like to bring our guests on and compare their entrepreneurial journey and their life story to that of beer brewing process. And that's obviously where we got the name Entrebrewer. But to get started, we kind of like to talk about the history in terms of who you are, where you came from, and what got you here today and what you do.
Yes, absolutely. So I grew up in an Amish community until the age of 19, and it was the most strict form of Amish people. So there's all different kinds of orders of Amish, and where I was at, it's a little bit like living in the 1600s. There's no electricity, there's no running water, there's nothing modern about it. And we worked really, really hard. So that's where I was until the age of 19. So if you want to imagine it, just think of getting up in the morning and you have to go to the barn to milk the cows. So you have milk for the day and you ride in horse and buggies. That's your transportation. And then when you cook your meals, you have a wood burning stove, and that's how you heat up the house, and that's how you cook your meals. Everything was made from scratch. There's no fast food or anything like that. We had our own gardens, we did our own farming, all of those things. So it's a really, really great way to learn a lot of things about providing for yourself. I will never regret that, but I had to leave. I couldn't stay there anymore.
So I know you kind of talked about a little bit of it at the event in terms of like what that transition obviously was like and what kind of led up to that. So if you don't mind kind of diving into that and then kind of obviously talking about what you're focusing on today with the business and your book, that would be amazing.
Absolutely. So I was in my teenage years when I started to get this urge of like, I don't belong here. I needed to figure out what was going on outside of this community. What was the world like outside of that? And so I had this desire to learn more. That was one thing. Two, I also just couldn't get in line with all the things that were happening in the community, the church rules and the suppression of the women, and all the way that they were treating people, and the way they told us who God was. Like, he was like the person up in the sky ready to beat you over the head if you did something wrong. And then, the preachers of the church, making you look like you're a really bad person for disobeying how you dress yourself. And I thought, how is this possible? How is this possible that there is a God like that? Because to me, he would be love, but he was not love where I was from. He was there to, beat you over the head, tell you what you did wrong. You're going to hell if you don't follow the rules. And so my thought was, well, if I'm going to go to hell for disobeying the rules of the church, then I might as well go to hell driving a car. And I'm like, I don't think that's healthy to think that, but that was my thought process.
Yeah.
So I just said, I can't be here anymore. But that was a few years of feeling that. When I was 17, I have a twin sister. And by the way, my parents have, this, but my parents have 19 children.
Yeah.
And within those 19 children, there's 3 sets of twins. And I have a twin. My twin is still Amish. She's married, and I believe she has 10 kids, something like that. I've lost count.
Wow. That's a lot.
So when we were 17, we ran away together, the two of us. And we said, hey, we're gonna leave. We don't want to be here anymore. But I was the driving factor in that. I said, I want to leave. I told her I'm going to leave. And she's like, all right, I'm going to come with you. So we did. But 2 days later, like, we were the first in the family to ever do that. 2 days later, she says, a brother of ours called the house that we were staying at, and she got to talk to him. And she comes back to me and she says, we have to go back home. I can't do this to my family. We were 17 at that point. And so for me to know that I don't belong there, I felt like I was so trapped, because I could not fathom having to go back there, because I knew I didn't belong there, but I had to go because of her. We were really close. So I went back, and then 2 years later is when I decided to leave. And it's really crazy how it all happened, because I was actually a member of the church. I got baptized in the church, and I had been a member for 6 months. And I just thought, this is where I'm going to have to stay. But something inside of me always knew that I wasn't going to be there for the rest of my life. But I didn't know how, I didn't know what. I just knew there was something bigger. There was always something that was driving me to think different. I was also a troublemaker, so.
that definitely leads into, obviously, the eventual leaving for good.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the time that I left, I was dating a guy from New York, and we were in Ohio.
Okay.
I was dating a guy from New York, and we only saw each other like twice a year. Outside of seeing each other in person, we would write each other letters, and that's how we dated. That's just the process there was. And so on this particular day, I was at my oldest sister's house, and I went to deliver my letter in the mailbox, and there was a note in the mailbox, and my boyfriend at the time and his sister and her boyfriend had all driven down from New York the day before. And he left a note in the mailbox, and he said, hey, we ran away. If you want to come, we'll come by here tonight at 10 p.m. and we'll pick you up. But if you don't want to come, then I'll come by in a couple of days and we can talk about this. And I was like, okay, that was his way of saying, I'll break up with you if you don't leave. But I snapped my fingers and I said, I'm leaving. I didn't even think twice. It was my way out. So I left that night. And if you want to know the full story of that, then you're going to go get my book and read the entire book. Yeah. Because the entire story is in there and it's pretty crazy. Amazing. How that all happened. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll put that book in the link to that book in the show notes. That way people can go pick it up. But yeah, I appreciate you sharing the story. Like there's so many different, just like little nuances that you were talking about, like the 19 kids, your twin sister going away and then coming back, and it's phenomenal. And then obviously you're here now. So talk to us a little bit about UnDiet Yourself and some of the entrepreneurial things that you've been doing. Because I think obviously your story is amazing, but talk to us a little bit about what you're doing right now.
Absolutely. So I'm a board certified functional nutrition coach, and I specialize in hormones and thyroid for primarily women. I do work with some men too, but primarily women. UnDiet Yourself came to me in the year of 2020. I'm also a personal trainer. So I trained in person at a studio for 6 years. And when COVID happened, God was like, all right, it's your time. You got to step out, go do your own thing. Because I always knew, again, I had that same feeling. I always knew there was going to be something different. I was meant for something bigger. I was supposed to do something else. I just didn't know what it was. So when COVID happened and everything went online, he was like, all right, you got to do it. So I'm driving in the car one day and I had already hired someone to help me kind of like bring things together with branding and just come up with, okay, what does this really look like? What am I going to do? I didn't even have a name yet. So we're driving in the car one day, my husband and my son, and I was like, my whole thing is to stop the dieting craziness, like jumping on the next like quick fix diet. Like you don't have to do that. Don't get me started on that. That's my whole thing. So we're driving in the car and I was like, what about UnDiet Yourself? And I told my husband about it and he's like, yeah, I actually really like it. And I told the girl that was helping me with my website, and I told her about it. I had a call with her and she's like, no, that's it. That's what you're going to name your company. So now when I first started with that, it was all about undieting, how to get rid of all the dieting craziness and just learn how to eat healthy and create a sustainable, healthy lifestyle that works for you, gets you results. But about a year into that, I went back to school for functional nutrition because I got really into the hormones and the gut health of things. And so I did a 10-month school program for that, got certified, got board certified, and now really dive into all the hormone stuff. I do labs for people, and it's my favorite part of what I do. So the way that it looks now is I really stand in the gap between the doctor and the client or the patient, because a lot of people are going to the doctors and they may do some labs for them and they come back and they say, okay, everything's fine, but they don't feel fine.
Yeah.
They know that there's something wrong and they don't feel fine, yet they're being told that they're fine and nothing is wrong. And this is all due to our medical system being as broken as it is, because insurance will only cover as much as they want to cover. And then doctors aren't willing to, many doctors, not all of them. There's actually a lot of doctors are stepping out on their own and they're creating their private practice where they don't even take insurance. They're called boutique doctors. So there are some that are doing that, but I'm that person. I'm that person in between, that's standing in between the doctor and the patient and saying, no, this is actually what's going on. And here's how we can make you feel better.
Love that. I think just the idea for your name and how that came about and the branding aspect of it. I love that because one, I know people, especially this time of year, are always talking about, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z diet. And for so long, up until this year, I've kind of been like, all right, I'm going to do some sort of a challenge. I'm going to do something to get my mind, my body, my fitness right. And then 9 times out of 10, I fall completely out of doing it. So I started about 60 days ago. I'm like, hey, this is just going to be the new Adam. It's not a new year. It's not a new fad. This is just what's going to work for me. But so many people get so consumed by the next fad or the next diet or the next challenge. And it is crazy that what you see out there. So I love what you're doing in the space. Talk to us a little bit about, obviously, so you started out doing your own thing. You've pivoted, obviously gone online, written a book. What are some key ingredients that have made you successful in your entrepreneurial journey thus far? If you could pick 3 of them and share that with the audience.
The first one I'm going to share is it's okay to be oblivious, because where I'm from, when I left, the culture shock is crazy. There is so much that you don't know. But I realize now that being oblivious to a lot of things actually helped me, because I'm not in my head. I'm not going, oh my gosh, like I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. But there's a lot that I didn't get taught growing up. And so I didn't have those things in my head. Well, what if? For me, it's about, if I have an idea and it feels right, and I see the vision and the purpose behind it of what it's going to do, I'm going to run with it and I'm going to test that out. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but I'm going to test it out in a kind of oblivious way sometimes, because I need to jump, because I'm familiar with jumping. I need to jump and test it out and see, is this going to work? And if it does not work, then we're going to pivot and we're going to go do something else.
Love it. Yeah. No, I think so often we only know what we know. And that sometimes when things come from outside, it really hurts us, because we get flustered by it. It throws us off, and it kind of derails us into some sort of hole or hiding. And oftentimes that's where we're in our deepest, darkest places. And it's a struggle to get out. And so if you can kind of build up the mind and train yourself as you're talking to get out of those things, but know and more so be self-aware, I think, of when you're going into those places. I think that is extremely beneficial. So I appreciate you sharing that. As we kind of move on and go through what we refer to as the entire brewing process. So obviously with entrepreneurship and just with your journey in general, it's not an overnight thing. There's many things that are going on behind the scenes as you're implementing all of this stuff. So talk to us about, in your entrepreneurial, what some of the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows have been in your journey thus far.
I'll touch on the highest first. The high for me is, as I stepped into having my own business, was understanding that I don't know everything, but I can do things. So when I started my business, I hired a coach right off the bat. And I tell literally everybody that is starting their entrepreneurial journey, I'm like, I don't care what you do, you need to invest in a coach that can help you. I'm on my 3rd coach now, and I always do better when I have a coach.
Oh yeah.
The high for me is not how much money I'm making, how much money I have in the bank. Sure, that's fine. That's amazing. It's an accomplishment when you see those numbers. The high for me is knowing that I am okay and I am confident in who I am and what I have to offer and how I can serve other people, how I can help them, and how it changes their lives. The most amazing days for me are when I get messages from my clients, or I'm on calls with my clients, and they're like, I've never slept this well in a long time. I've never had energy all day, or I haven't had energy all day since 10 years ago. I feel good. Like, those are my highs. That's where I draw from, because I know that we're making a difference, and that's where I want to make a difference. And I just happen to get paid to do it.
Yeah.
So those are my highs. The lows for me would be more or less like when I find that it can get easy to get into a place of complacency if you're not careful.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like, hey, I made it to $10,000 a month. And you're like, okay, I'm just going to sit here now. Like, this feels good. Instead of going, okay, like that's good and all, but what else do I need to be doing? Because if you become complacent in that, it's going to drop. It's 100% going to drop. So you can, for me, it was learning that. But in my first year of the business, there was one of the coaching programs that I was in, and they had a life coach and a mindset coach in there. And I went in there for business coaching, but the most amazing things I got from that program were the mindset coach and the life coach. It changed me dramatically with who I am, how I view myself, what I can bring to the table, and how I can help others. But I had to learn that about myself first and heal in many areas that I didn't even know I had to heal from.
Yeah, no, it's extremely powerful.
Yeah, I think that you can make as much money as you want, but like if you don't love who you are and what you bring, and you don't heal from things that you need to heal, then what are you even doing? Because you're going to be miserable. Yeah. And I'm not about to be miserable in my life.
Yeah, no, I love that. That makes all the sense in the world. So getting into the fermentation and conditioning process, we want to know, what is the biggest lesson that you've learned that you would share with an entrepreneur that's looking to save them years worth of mistakes?
Invest in coaches. 100% over and over and over. Like that's always the number one thing like I said before, it's the number one thing that I would tell people. Because when I hired my first coach, I was in the very beginning, and she helped me with kind of the startup of things, getting some things in place with the program and all of that. Then when I went on to my second coach, I had made like $2,500 a month in my business. When I went to my second coach, my second month with the second coach, I did 10K. And I was like, what is happening right now? But it was literally what they were teaching me and the value that I bring and how much I can actually charge for my program. If it wasn't for them, I would have never believed that. But now, just continuing to grow, and I charge double than what I did back then.
Yep.
So
that's amazing.
It's amazing to like watch that happen, because I had this conversation with someone a while ago, and we're talking about raising your prices and going from like charging $500 a month to $1,500 a month. Let's just say that. You have to, as a person, you have to believe in yourself also, that that's what you can bring to the table, and what your offer holds for them, that you know that you can help your clients with that and believe in that. But for me, it was about growing with the rise of my program, like how much I'm charging. I told this specific individual, I said, I had to grow with that. And I grew over, it's only been 2.5 years. I grew over time with that, and I'm going to keep raising my prices.
Yeah. I love what you talk about, not only on the investing in the coaches side, because I've been investing in coaching in really masterminds ever since I got started as well. And I think that's one of the reasons why people like ourselves I've only been doing this for 2.5 years. I grew a marketing company from $0 in revenue to multi-7 figures in less than 2 years, right? But we're willing to take the chance and bet on ourselves, knowing that we don't know everything. But I like to refer to it as condensing time. We would have figured out a lot of these things, whether it would have taken 5 years, 15 or 20 years, but we're willing to pay the money and be with the right groups of people. So that way we don't have to wait as long.
Yep.
And there's pros and cons to both aspects of it, but I would rather get there quicker, learn along the way, but having it with kind of a system and a network of people that are guiding you on that path, and they've been there before. So you're not like, oh my gosh, I feel on an island, because you're already going to feel on an island. But if you're on an island with more people, obviously it's a much easier chance to survive.
Yes. And not only that, I was later last year, not earlier last year, about October, November of last year, I was doing okay, but I was starting to feel like I needed to connect with more people, but I didn't know where to find them. It needed to be online, but it was starting to feel a little bit like an island. I'm doing fine, but like it was starting to feel like an island. And that's when I got connected to BLN. And I was like, my entire world changed again, because I thrive off of being in the same room as other entrepreneurs and just talking business and just all the fun stuff.
Yeah. No, it makes all the difference in the world. And when you're around those people, it makes you feel, because I feel like us as entrepreneurs, we get down on ourselves a lot because we feel like we're the only ones going through something. We feel like we're crazy. We feel like sometimes, my wife isn't an entrepreneur, but even if she was, like, you feel like you might only be going through something because you're the one that's running the business or whatever that might be. And so having that support system, having that network that you can just tap into and be like, hey, here's what's going on. There's either somebody in the network that can help you or that's been through that. Yeah. And it makes all the difference in the world. So I appreciate you sharing that there.
Yes.
The last thing that we'll talk about before we finish up here today is the distribution. So within the beer market, that's taking beer to market and selling it. So talk to us about what the future holds for Lizzie and what you have coming down the pipeline here in 2023 and beyond.
Absolutely. So I just launched my book last month. So that's a huge thing that we're going to continue to drive forward with. And I am also going to be doing another book sometime this year. So amazing. That's another thing that's coming up. And I'm in the process of kind of rebuilding my entire program. And I will keep my elite program that I have right now, but I'm looking to build kind of a little bit like a BLN, where it's just a smaller fee coming in, but we build an entire wellness community out of that. So that's my next project, is building that, because not everybody can afford the high elite program. But if I can build a community where we can bring in thousands of people and help them even in a community aspect, then that's what we're going to do. So those are a couple of things. And then the last thing is I'm going to be doing a lot more speaking as well. So I'm going to be getting on stages and just having a lot of fun with that.
Love that. I love the community aspect, especially as an ability and an offer to get your message and what it is about your methodology out to more people. And I think we all need to do a better job of that, myself included, because you're only focused on like such a subset of a niche of a niche of a niche, which is great, but there's so much more impact to be had. And then I obviously love the idea of writing another book. I need to do that myself. And then also speaking on more stages, that's going to be a big focus for me as well. But I'm really excited that we're connected. I'm excited to be a part of your network now and to follow your journey here in 2023. I have no doubt you're going to have a ton of success. So Lizzie, thank you so much for coming on today. Where can people get connected with you online, whether it's websites, social media, or a combination of both?
You can find me on Lizzie Ens Wellness on Instagram. That's a big one. That's my big platform there. And then if you want to email me, you can email me at lizzie@undietyourself.live.
Awesome. We'll have all that in the show notes along with your book as well. So that way people can pick up a copy of that. But Lizzie, thank you so much for coming on today. It was a great episode. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Adam.
And I want to thank you again to the audience for tuning in to today's podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, download, and share our content. Leaving a 5-star review goes a long way. And thank you again to Half Coast Studios. If you're in St. Louis and looking to start your own podcast or take your current one to the next level, come check out what they have going on. We'll see you all next week. And remember, entrepreneurs aren't born, they are brewed.
I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs aren't born, they're brewed. Thank you for listening to Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney.